Here we are. It's live on Wednesday night. This is Scotty Roberts. Welcome to the show. This is the Intrepid radio program right here on the Odyssey Radio Network, but not the Odyssey Radio Network tonight because we are not broadcasting there. We're broadcasting live here. And that's mostly my screwed up week kind of created some problems for that. So sorry about that to my Odyssey listeners who might be, hey, I'm getting some feedback here. I don't know why I'm getting that. Hold on a second. Oh, there's an ad playing on somewhere on my browser. Sorry about that. That is gone now. Let me make sure it's gone from over here as well. All right. Sorry about that. Little housekeeping there. So welcome to the program tonight, folks. I've been working for a bit today, trying to make my live stream work a little better, where we have some intro music in the introduction, and we can throw some things in the middle and have an outro at the end, and also be able to import photographs. Now, I started doing that because once I decided I'm not going to pre-record and not going to make it to Odyssey tonight, I started working on the live stream, and I wanted to be able to import some pictures for tonight, and it's not working. I can't do that in this streaming format, which is too bad because there's a lot of great photos I wanted to show you tonight. It was actually going to segue off into a little slideshow of some of my travels in Egypt and on the Giza plateau, especially because tonight we're going to be talking about Enoch, the holy language, and the Great Pyramid of Egypt. So in talking about that, we're talking about some of the channels. Now, you don't hear a lot about this, but the channels that are there at the Giza Plateau, they run alongside the Sphinx. If the Sphinx is sitting, say, if you're looking at my screen, if the Sphinx is down here on the bottom, and you're looking from an overhead, and the pyramids are over here, here, and here, well, that Sphinx, there's a channel that goes past the Sphinx and runs all the way up to the Great Pyramid. If you go out behind the Great Pyramid, you're going to see what looked like a roadway, and I've got pictures of it, but a roadway that goes from the pyramids all the way to downtown Giza, or Cairo is right there. And you can see abruptly, if you go look at a map and look at the satellite view on Google of the Giza Plateau, and you look at where the city is starting to encroach, it's not even a mile away. Maybe over this desert sand, it might be a mile, but you can stand at the pyramids and look one direction, all you see is Sahara Desert. If you look east, all you're going to see is the skyline of Cairo stretched all across the stand. And so it looks like you could walk there in a half an hour from the pyramids. So, but there's a roadway, an old roadway, but that's a channel, they say, that had water that was brought up from the Nile River all the way to the pyramids. And there's some things we're going to talk about that. And there's some guests I'd like to have on as I get this all worked out that are going to be able to talk to us more about some of this stuff from a different angle. So welcome, everybody. Master Finn, good to see you here tonight. Take her out, Master Finn. And Steve Clark, glad to have you over. And Steve just came over from Teresa's show. And Doug Stack, good to see you, brother. Let's see, who else we got in here? We got a bunch of people. I know Leslie's here. I saw you early on. And Field Guy and Roger Rabbit. And all my friends are coming in, all the regular Intrepids. So if you are not an Intrepid yet and you're listening or watching this show, you can join the chat room. You can be a voyeur and just watch us. That's fine. And I use voyeur in a positive sense. You can come on in and just watch the conversation as it's going on, or you can come in and you can actually click into the chat room and join and become a talking participant in the chat room. You can also look down below this video screen. You're going to see a join button. If you hit that join button, you're going to see 3 options come up to be a member of this channel. So I'd love it if you go over there, take a look at the different perks we have and what you get for those perks and for memberships. And I would appreciate that. I appreciate that in advance. And all of those of you who are members, I thank you for being here. So we've had these memberships going for a little over 2 weeks now. So so far we've been able to do some morning shows. We're going to do another morning show on Friday of this week, and that's going to be New Year's Day. So hopefully for members only, and then we'll go members only. We may or may not open it up to the public, depending on how things go. So if you want to join us at 9 a.m., I'm sorry, what time is it going to be for New Year's Day? We probably shouldn't do 6 a.m. on New Year's Day. And maybe we should move that off of New Year's Day and move it back to tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow morning. Let me decide. I'll send out an announcement and you'll see it. Or maybe take a vote in here. If you want to do 6 a.m. tomorrow or do 9 a.m. on Friday, let me know in the chat room and we'll make it so. And we may open that up to the public once so we get some personal membership business out of the way. So you will not be awake tomorrow at 6 a.m. Doug, do you never have to go anywhere? You're never awake in the mornings. That's like Eric von Daniken when he came to the Paradigm Symposium. I mentioned this last week sometime when we were talking about this. His assistant said, and Mr. von Daniken does not exist in the mornings. And it's printed on his business cards. Do not exist in the morning. Field guy says, Doug Sack, hell, you PayPal me first to see if it works for him. Okay, I thought there was something else going on there. So that's between you guys. And by the way, I've got to tell you, I experienced a first today. My male cat pissed all over our female pug / mini English bulldog, Lucy Fur. Apparently, the cat was under the bed, and Lucy went under the bed and started getting playful with the cat, wanting the cat to start biting at the cat. Not mean, attacking the cat in play, the way she does. And the cat pissed all over her and took off. So my son had to clean the cat. The cat, I haven't seen the cat. He's around somewhere. It's like, you dumbass. I love animals, but I hate domestic animals in the house anymore. I love having a dog. I always have had a dog. Cats, I tolerate them. But sometimes I have, yeah, it sure does, Iowa X. Interspecies sex sounds hot. Well, it's interesting. If you can catch it on camera, you'll make a lot of money. Maybe. So Barbie D, good to see you. Scott Lowry, good to see you. And Iowa X, of course, good to see you. And Doug, if I didn't say hey, I talked about you, but I don't know if I said hey yet. So everybody, welcome to the show. Roger Rabbit says, I'd like to say we should do the 9 a.m. option. Might be able to get some more folks to join us. And hopefully they'll see the benefits of being a member. Hey, there we go. I like that idea, Roger. So far, you're in the lead. And the 6 a.m. option, that's for, I do that during the work week. So for people who want to get up before they take out for work, tune in the show, they can do that. And so Rocky Stucci Media. How you doing, Rocky? Good to see you, brother. And so that's what's going on this week. I think we're going to shoot for the Friday morning thing then at 9 a.m. I can guarantee you, as an old married guy with 3 kids at home, we probably aren't going out on New Year's Eve. Now, it's not that we can't. It's not we don't have sitters and stuff like that. We had a good friend of mine owns Rocky, you know what this is because you live here. The Apple River Intertubing, the River's Edge. And he's got Riverbend, his restaurant. And they're doing dueling piano, that band that they're showing up there. And they're doing a big meal and champagne and dancing and all of that for New Year's Eve. And he was going to let Rainey and I and a couple of friends come in for fun, for free, for no charge, and because I do work for him. And you know what? Rainey's got to do massages on New Year's Eve. Believe it or not, there's going to be people at the Water Street Hotel. Governor Walz is, I don't know if he's loosened everything up or if people are just starting to get tired of it. But there's going to be people for New Year's Eve staying at the hotel. So Rainey's got to go in and do a few massages. And she won't even be free until 9 o'clock. And by then, after massaging 3 or 4 people, she's going to be worn out. She's not going to want to go out. So there it is. New Year's Eve at home. And but that's okay. Awesome spot. Scotty would love the dueling pianos. It's fantastic. Yeah, I would love to do that, but I think we're going to end up being at home. But that's my friend Steve Kaufman, who owns with his brothers, owns the Cedar Lake Speedway up here. It's one of the only 2 dirt NASCAR tracks left in the country. And that's about, that's Somerset. That's about 10 miles from here. 10-minute drive from here. And he also now owns the River's Edge, which is the Apple River is a place where when I was growing up, my mom and all her friends would get together with all the kids and they'd all take us down to the Apple River. And you could go, a mile or 2 upstream and sit in the inner tubes and inner tube down to certain places where you got off. And the River's Edge is actually where we always got off because you can see that campground still from when I was a kid. I'm talking 40, 50 years ago. And that was a lot of fun down there. My friend owns that. So tomorrow is New Year's Eve. Yeah, can you believe it already, Barbie D? It's New Year's Eve tomorrow. 2 days. It's going to be 2021. And now, speaking of 2021, how's that for a segue? Because it doesn't really segue. I know I don't do lots of politics on this channel. You want to listen to good political talk, comments, go over to Rocky Stucci's channel, Rocky Stucci Media. You're going to see some good political talk over there. Here, we do some other stuff, and I don't like to get into it as much. This is kind of a place to escape from that a bit, but I still give you plenty on a platter to consider. One of the things that has really bothered me this week, and I've got some of my leftist friends are coming and saying, see, you're socialist. No, I'm not. I believe the stimulus checks for Americans is a good thing. And number one, it's our tax dollars coming back to us. This is not the government giving us a handout and taking care of us. But you know what it has turned into right now? It's turned into bread and circuses. You remember what bread and circuses was? To placate the people during times of impoverishment and hard financial times in ancient Rome. What would they do? They started up the gladiatorial games and let them come in for nothing or for the equivalent of a penny in today's wages. And they would bring out wagons and throw wagons in the streets and in the stands of bread to all the people. You can come and get a couple of loaves of bread and watch the gladiatorial games for free. And watch us kill some Christians. Watch us kill some barbarian slaves in the ring and get your loaf of bread. And, we kind of do that now. You can go to a baseball game and, they'll shoot out T-shirts and caps or little baseball bats and things like that. But bread and circuses, that's where the term came from. The circus was the gladiatorial games. The bread was the loaves of bread that they handed out. Now, you look at what's going on right now there is a $600 stimulus check that has been approved along with a bunch of extra garbage. Of course, there is the understanding that we think this was just a stimulus package, this legislation. It wasn't. It was an omnibus spending bill, an appropriations bill that they tacked the stimulus bill onto. But the stimulus bill is $600 per person, adult person. And I thought I heard it was the same, $600 per kid. Might be half that. It might be $300. I haven't been able to find that exactly anywhere. I had heard originally it was $600 for kids as well. But at any rate, if you're a single adult, you're getting your $600. That's happening now. They already announced there's going to be people already receiving their $600. I know a field guy told me he got his $600 already today. A couple of other people. I haven't checked the account, so I don't know if we got ours. But there's people already getting that. And the big problem that was in there is President Trump called for 2,000. Could you believe that President Trump, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer all agreed on something? They agreed that American citizens should get $2,000 a person. And now the problem is that all this crap on this bill, Trump vetoed it. Why did he veto it? Not because he didn't want people to get a stimulus check. He vetoed it because the Congress would not fix the bill. Take down all the crap, all the foreign spending. Did you know, now this is rough figures off the top of my head, that the stimulus package part of that bill to Americans equals about $176 billion. The foreign spending, aid to other countries, remember I said about 174 to 176 billion to American citizens in stimulus, 176 to about 750 to 780, I think it was, $billion to foreign countries. That's a huge difference. And so we ask, well, why are we sending that much money to foreign countries and not taking care of our own people? $600 stimulus check. It's like I said to Field Guide today. Don't spend that all in one place, brother. Now, if we were 12 years old and we got $600, we'd go, yes, I can buy some video games. I can do this. I can do that with my money. We're grown-ups. Let me ask you folks, how many of you, $600 is better than a sharp stick in the eye? Yeah. But if Congress is saying to you, hey, take the $600, it's better than a sharp stick in the eye, that's wrong. That's off. That's you can't do much with $600, especially since the last stimulus was what did we get? $1,200 apiece last time, and that was 8 to 9 months ago. I think we got ours in March, so March or April, and so that's nothing. And so for people who are genuinely in need in this country because of the COVID shutdowns, or it's like my wife. If my wife was a single woman and all she was doing was her massage and that was her job, and she has had like 4 massages in the last 5 to 6 weeks, where before that, she was getting 3 and 4 massages a day. So she has done in a month what she normally did per day during the work week. So you look at that, somebody who's got a job and the COVID stuff and all the shutdowns, thank you, Governor Walz and other governors, what happens to people who don't have the money, who can't find work? If the government's going to shut you down, then the government, it's okay for them to give you some of your tax dollars back. So here's the problem that we're sitting in right now. $600. It almost feels like Congress is thumbing their nose at us. Mitch McConnell, Pelosi, everybody. You know what happens during these times? They play political games with your livelihood. They play, when you see, well, we're going to have to take this back to debate it, and we're going to, it's going to be a hard press to make this thing happen, says Mitch McConnell. And in the meantime, they aren't going. This is desperate times for some of the people in this country, and we need to get this into people's hands. It's simple. I got to tell you what, if I were the king of America, or the dictator of America, or the king, let's go king, like England, and I still have to go through the parliament. So I got to still go through the Senate. Hey, you guys, vote on something for the people. You don't attach all kinds of bullshit to the legislation. You don't spread it out. You don't veto the legislation. You don't turn down the legislation so you can introduce your own bill with your own crap attached to it, which is what Mitch McConnell did. Maybe crap you like, maybe crap you don't like, but there's still crap attached to this stuff. Single out the bill. Make the bill a singular issue. Stimulus checks to Americans. Boom. Nothing else attached. Then vote on whether or not it's 6,600 or 2,000 or whatever it might be. Why is it so difficult to do that? You know why? Because politicians are playing games. They are, you know what Mitch McConnell's doing? You know why this is being done? It's not being done to better Americans. It's being done to make themselves look good if it passes. And if it doesn't pass, to be able to kick the ball over to the other side and say, look what the other side did. They don't want you. They don't hold. How many times have you heard stuff like that? Well, these politicians, they don't love the American people. They don't care about the American people. That's all being said usually in a political game of football. And what's going on? It's a political game of a keep away. Did you ever play keep away when you were kids? You had one guy in the middle, one person in the middle, and you'd throw the ball up over their heads or around, and they had to try to catch it. And you tried. The goal was to keep it away from someone, and until they caught it. The American people are in a game of keep away. They're in the middle of the circle, and your politicians are around the ring throwing the ball at each other back and forth, trying to keep it out of your hands. And that's the problem as I see it in America right now with this whole bill. Leslie said, they want us under their thumbs. They forgot they work for us. Decades ago when they crawled into bed with lobbyists. Leslie, I think it's anybody in power. I don't think it's even the lobbyists, although that's a part of it. I think they forget that we're the ones that are supposed to be in charge. The problem is you can't, without starting an armed insurrection or revolution, walk into Congress and pull a guy by the necktie out of his chair and go, you're out. We're the people. We're your boss. You're fired. You're out of here. Can't do that. You got to reelect them or not reelect them. Vote them out. So, they've got time to change. They've got time to remedy. You state your case. Maybe we should go burning cities. No, we shouldn't, should we? That's the difference. So, vote them out. I say, you look at a Mitch McConnell, you look at a Nancy Pelosi, a Chuck Schumer, you look at many people in Congress now, how many decades they've all been in the Congress. It was never meant to be that. Vote them out. So I would say make the stimulus package, although it's already passed. Now, did you know that right now, as soon as the Senate turned down the $2,000 thing yesterday, Mitch McConnell came and said, well, the Senate turned it down and the Republicans turned it down. And so, but I'm introducing a new bill. He wants to introduce a new bill of legislation immediately on the tail of that says it's a sole legislation for a $2,000 stimulus check, an additional one. And also he tacked onto it, eliminating the 230, which gives no protection to places like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, for turning themselves from platforms into publishers who can censor you. They're taking away those protections, is what the 230 law did. Do away with that. The 230 law gave them the protection. And then he also tacked on investigating the claims of election fraud. Now, first of all, you take that singular issue alone, look at the controversy over that idea. He wants to tack that legislation onto a legislation for money that's going to help people in need in the country. It's set up to fail. If by any chance it passed, it'll pass in the Senate. It'll be turned down in the House. If that bill passed, what he did was he took Rocky's. I saw Rocky's name over there out of the corner of my eye in the chat room. He took the three things that were Trump's main big issues, which I agree with most of these issues, with all of them. But he took those and he threw them into a bill that he is calling the bill that's going to give you $2,000 more in stimulus, when really it's a bill that's built to fail because he tacked other bullshit onto it. Whether it's good and you agree with it and it's right, it's bullshit. You don't tack that onto a bill that you're trying to pass to help the American people. The only reason he's got it on there is so if it passes by any rare stretch of the imagination, there, see, we've given you a bill that'll pass, and there we've helped you, American people. We're big, we're good. And vote for us next time. Or if it fails, which is more than likely to be what happens, when it fails, you can go, there's those Democrats, see what they did. Now, I'm not a big fan of the Democrats, or the left, but I will tell you what, when you start playing manipulative political games, the American public has got to start seeing one thing, and that is the games that your government is playing with you. if we would ever wake up to that fact. I'm not talking about being woke. Woke is stupid. Woke is bullshit. I'm talking about waking up to what's going on in government. And if we truly are a republic that has voting power to get people out of office, vote them out. Unless you're starting to see that there is an electorate in this country that can be fraudulently manipulated. There's another whole ball of wax. So right now, Mitch McConnell, his new bill, I think it's a piece of shit. And I think he's a piece of shit for offering it up. There, I said it. Ooh. So this is the stuff. Now, this show is not about politics, but that's about as political as I'll get. Woke is stupid, says Rocky. I agree. Woke is stupid. And so I could talk about this stuff a lot more. I'm not going to. I got articles called up I was going to refer to, and I was going to look at some here. I got an article right here that, that's the Republicans that blocked the 2000. That's yesterday. That's old news now. I'm just going to turn that one off. There's other articles that are up in here. Where is it? McConnell says that the push by Democrats, Trump for a $2,000 stimulus check has no realistic path to quickly pass the Senate. That was just a few hours ago he said that. The push by Democrats and Trump for a $2,000 stimulus check has no realistic path to pass the Senate. That's the headline. The Senate leader said the measure would be too costly, would not be targeted toward the needy, and would help families that are living comfortably. Now, maybe he's right on some of those things. Maybe it would go to families that really don't need it all that much. Maybe it would. Maybe it wouldn't. But he's setting up legislation that he's already saying isn't going to pass. What do we do with that? What do you do when the politician introducing the legislation says that about his own legislation? You know what? They're playing games. Mitch McConnell needs to go home and go fishing. Retired, gone fishing. Good luck. See you, Mitch. Same with and drag Pelosi and Schumer out with you. And a bunch of other people that I think need to leave. You start getting some young blood into Congress. There you go. Hey, a couple of years ago, we used to talk about Rocky Stucci for president. And I was going to be the vice president. I was like, shut up. Rocky's in the room. This would be the way we'd announce his press conference. Shut up. President Stucci's in the room. And so that's what we need. We need new blood. So a good portion of Washington needs to do that, says Leslie Holker. I agree. Now, Field Guy, just say you're an illegal alien, you get $1,800. Now, Field Guy, I did hear and I did see some fact checking on that's not supposed to be happening in this bill. Find me a link, Field Guy. I need to see it because I didn't get time to really dig into it too deep. But I had a bunch of people riding my ass saying, hey, that's not accurate. So let's see, Steve Clark. Rocky, I would too. This is Steve Clark. There you go. Now, like we do every day, and it's already, we're already halfway through the show. Can you believe that? But we're going live, so I don't have any strictures on my time right now. So we can go a little late if we want to. I don't want to offend my friend Jimmy Johnson over there too much. But here you go. I've got this. Remember, I've been doing this almost every day. Spark Courage. It's this little thing I got for $1 at garage sale. Rainey said maybe it was $1, and it's filled with fake matchsticks. And on those matchsticks are written little things: 50 ways to be bold, 50 ways to spark your courage. And we've been doing that extemporaneously every day, just drawing one of these out and seeing what the hell they have to say. And I'm looking for some. We did this one. But it's a good one to maybe to recap. Okay, here you go. Here's a good one. All right, can you read this? Look at that. I'm going to hold that up to the camera. It's backwards on my camera, so I can't read it backwards. What is a true passion of yours? Make time for it this week. Boom. What is a true passion of yours? Make time for it this week. Because he's in the room, and I'm not blowing sunshine up Rocky's ass. He doesn't need me blowing sunshine up his ass. But I want to use him as an example since he's here. And I might not have thought of him right away if I hadn't seen his name in our chat room. But the reason I bring him up is Rocky is somebody that says, you just go ahead and tell me I can't do it. And he says, see how far I get. Because he's here. Your passion that you are building those things, no matter what the hell somebody else says to you. That's a big thing for me as well. It's I was doing things when I published got published the original book, my first book I ever had published, The Rollicking Adventures of Tam O'Hare. That was a book that I didn't have a lot of naysayers, but I had a few come along and say, you'll never finish that, because it was a project that was in the background and I didn't commit full time to it. But once I did, that thing got published. Then I republished it. I bought the rights and I republished it, re-released it as a color book. Some of my other books, I had somebody who was big in the paranormal mysteries world out there that when I was talking about, I'd written an article about the Nephilim for a magazine. And I said, hey, I'm going to write this as a book. And I had criticism from somebody who was well known. They said, he's never going to write that book. Guy, you've been talking about that for 3 years now. Well, you know what? I hadn't kicked it into high gear yet. When I kicked it into high gear, it was done. And that book was published in 2012. Then I said, I'm going to publish the follow-up book. And I did it in 2013. Then I also, what else came out? There's 2 books I had that came out in 2013. Oh, the Reptilians book came out in 2013. And John Ward and I started writing and released in 2013, October of the year, we released The Exodus Reality. And right now I've got a novel I'm working on that I'm finishing for my agent. That's going to be coming up, and hopefully that'll go well. I've read you some of the things and the points about that. The only reason I'm using those personal examples is to say, are there things that you are passionate about, that you want to put your effort into, put your drive into to make them happen? Well, why not now? Remember my mantra? I've repeated it 1 million times on the show, not to exaggerate, but my mantra, Mark Twain said, 20 years from now, you will regret more the things you didn't do than the things you did do. So cast off from the safe harbor. Set your sails to the trade winds. Explore, dream, discover. Mark Twain said that. Is that what you're doing with your passions? The things that make you go? The things that you get up in the morning, you look in the mirror and you go, shit, I got to go to this shitty job. Or do you get up and look in the mirror and go, I got this thing I'm going to pursue, and I'm going to stop talking about it, and I'm going to do it. Kick your passions into high gear. And when you do that, isn't this the stuff we've talked about many times on this show about being, again, not woke, but being awake? Being awake, being aware that you are awake in a world that's asleep around you. You're awake. Wake up. Be awake, be aware that you are awake, start visualizing, start, what's the word I'm looking for? Implementing, start manifesting. Now you can say, I've got a passion, I've got a dream that I want to fulfill. And if you say it and you take it and you set it off over there and you go, it's not doing anything. I'm visualizing it. You know what? You got to manifest it. You've got to make it happen. This is where I get back to Rocky. There are things that he said he was going to do several years ago and that he started doing. He's working his butt off to manifest. When I write a book, I work my butt off to manifest that book. What do? Are you doing things to manifest what it is you want to do? So there's our matchstick courage today. And it's, of course, out of this box, Spark Courage. It's a thing I got for $0.25. I didn't originate these. All it does is it gives me something to talk about. And I extemporaneously say, hey, let's talk about this because we can all do this. These are things we can all do. You know the questions that we've pulled out of that box? Hey, Joe Sapiens. I want to say, hey, some of the people who've slipped in while I was fuming away over politics or talking about this or that or the other thing. YouTube is being a total ass tonight, says Steve. I'm sorry you're having problems with YouTube. Leslie says Tam O'Hare's a great book. Thank you, Leslie. She's also got the all-over Tam O'Hare sweatshirt, hoodie, the big pocket, with pictures from the book all over it. So, Susie Q, good to see you. Nice that you're here. I'm glad you're here tonight. And who else we got that slipped in? If there's anybody else who slipped in and I missed you, welcome. Sorry, I'm not calling you out by name. But there you go. And now I'll say, now that we've got more people of you in here, if you do not have a membership to this channel, hit the join button down below. Join. It's going to pull up just a window. It'll do it right over the video as we're talking here. You'll see a little window pop up. You'll have 3 options to join this channel, become a member. You can look at the perks that are there and go ahead and click away. Join the channel. Become a member. Membership has its privileges, as American Express stole that line from me many years ago. Field guide's poor. So let's see. What else we got going on in here in the chat room? Scotty, I want all your books right now. Oh, meow. Right, meow? Okay. You can get them. I got them. They're right here. I got a couple even right here on the shelf. Unless I moved them. Oh, wrong shelf. Hang on. Over here on this shelf. You know what? I don't know if it's this one or Reptilians that I've only got one left of. We got the Rise and Fall of the Nephilim is sitting right over there. You know what else you can get? Any of you speak Chinese? This is, hold on, I got something that came out that wasn't supposed to fall out of there. I've got John Ward's in my book, The Exodus Reality in Chinese. Oh, Exodus Reality. And there you go. You see? It's all in, I don't know what kind of Chinese. I hear there's all different kinds of Chinese dialects, but there it is. There's a fold out in here, too. No, that's a letter. Dear Scott, I'm pleased to enclose copies of your book, The Exodus Reality, in Chinese. Simplified language. Chinese simplified language. So, maybe rather than making viruses that infect the world, they should sit down over there in China and read this book. But this is available, too. I got a couple of those. I'm keeping one for a souvenir. I've also got, this one you're going to like. You're going to like this. Auge Caído de los Nephilim. That's the Rise and Fall of the Nephilim in Spanish. So we got that one. So Doug, that was for Doug. I got all the books here. I got them in English. I got a couple of different copies. I've also got the Reptilians in Spanish. It's called, you know what that's called in Spanish? It's called La Historia Secreta de los Reptilianos. Aye! So the Reptilians. So there you go. Now, I've only got a few of those. I'm mostly joking with that. I do have the books, Doug. If you want them, get a hold of me. So where are we going from here now? I want to talk about Enoch. Now, I've used the first half an hour to talk about other things. That's okay. It's my show. I can talk about whatever I want in whatever order I want. Sometimes we spend the whole time on our topic. Other times, it's a variety show. I got a bunch of stuff. When you pick up a magazine and you pick it up because the cover says, read about the Cardassians give birth to aliens. And you go, whoa, I want that magazine. And you pick it up and you got to thumb through, like 20 other articles until you get there. That's what this show does sometimes. So I'm really glad you're here. So, what is that? Marianne. Oh, I know. Oh, I was going to bring that up tonight as an entry. Marianne. Dawn Wells, who played Marianne on Gilligan's Island back from 1965 to 1967. They did 3 seasons, 65, 66, 67. She played I would say, probably one of the most gorgeous, cool chicks on TV in the 60s. It was okay. I'm using the word chicks because it wasn't politically incorrect in the 60s. She had the abs, and she had the hot pants and the little tie top that she would wear, the brunette pigtails. There you go, Marianne from Gilligan's Island. And do you know that right now the woman who played Ginger, probably in her 80s, I'm sure she is. She was about the same age as Dawn Wells. Dawn Wells was 82, and she died early today. But Ginger, Tina Louise, who played Ginger Grant on Gilligan's Island, the movie star, she's the only surviving cast member of that show. Imagine having a fraternity like that you were part of in your youth, and you kept in touch over the years, and Gilligan's Island it's a cult. I wouldn't call it a cult. It's a classic. Cult classic. Had its own following. Everybody in that show has died other than one person. Could you imagine being the only person left? But so our condolences to the family of Dawn Wells, and it's a loss for us all. We all knew it was coming. There's going to be a day, our heroes start dying off, the people we admired when we were kids. And she was literally my first TV crush. And after that came Yeoman Rand on the original Star Trek. The blonde yeoman. That was my next crush. Then there was Julie Newmar, who played Catwoman in the original Batman series with Adam West in the 60s. Look up Julie Newmar. If it doesn't strike a note as to who she is, look her up in her cat suit. Meow. So right now, let's get off of that. Rocky triggered that in my mind, that Dawn Wells passed away today. They say it was complications of COVID. I don't like that. She was 82. She was sick, and she had complications. So a lot of these COVID deaths that they chalk up as death to COVID, complications because of COVID. Did COVID kill her, or did the combination kill her? Did the other thing kill her and she had COVID? We don't know for sure. I don't even want to get into the politics of that. What I do want to say is it's sad that she died. Roger Rabbit, boom, mic drop. This is my show, bitches. Thank you, Roger. And Michelle, Cannon Free, McFree, how you doing? Hey, anybody seen, by the way, much of Mike Yehudi around? I catch him on Facebook every now and then, putting up some posts, but I haven't seen him of late. So everybody wish him your best. And so let's get into the topic of Enoch now. Enoch and the Great Pyramid. This is, and it's been a few days since we were in this. It was last Friday, actually last Thursday, was the last time we talked about Enoch and the holy language. And that's only because the holiday was in there. Was it the holiday? Was last week Christmas? What is today? The 30th. Yeah, last week was Christmas. So Thursday was our last show. We were going to pick it up on Monday. Then I was gone Monday and Tuesday. I did make it to a live broadcast last night. And now we're back on it now. It's already Wednesday. And we're trying to pick up where we left off 6 days ago. And so here, I want to move a couple things around on my screen so I can see the chat room over here while I'm talking. I just opened up another window with some of my notes in it, and I didn't want to lose that. Now, remember, we've been going through all this stuff about the holy language and how, like the Hebrew alphabet, some of the letters of the Hebrew alphabet formulate every other letter if you look at it from different angles. And it fits into the great golden spiral of the universe. We talked about all that. I don't want to get into it again, or we're just total recap. We talked about how Enoch may have been the architect behind the building of the Great Pyramid, because it talks about in the book of Enoch how he was given by God all the numbers, all the figurings of numbers, alphabet and language. He's called the first scribe in human history. That Enoch wasn't just this guy who the Bible verse that we're familiar with. If you go to church and you go to church, I feel like Indiana Jones, where he's got the two government guys in the first movie. And he goes, the lost ark. And he says, whoever held it out in front of the army would win. He goes, he says, either you guys go to Sunday school. So that's it. If you don't know about Enoch, Enoch was one of those verses where we heard it out of the book of Genesis, and Enoch walked with God and was not, for God took him. Now it starts by saying Enoch was 65 or 67 years old, and he bore children. And it says, and then Enoch walked with God and was not, for God took him. And it's interesting that when you open up the book of Enoch, how you see so much more about Enoch. You look at what was the lost book of Jubilees, which we found with the Dead Sea Scrolls. The book of Jubilees is one. Was it the Dead Sea Scrolls, or was it at Dindara? Found the book in the late 40s, and it talks about Enoch again, and it expands on Enoch. And Enoch, the book of Enoch itself, expands on Enoch, obviously. There's all the books of Enoch. And I like to say that Enoch is a bit like the Old Testament on crack, because it's wildly crazy when you start reading it. And it was originally cast out. Well, it was cast out by Constantine's councils back in the 300s, the Council of Nicaea and following. Took books that they didn't think were canonized scripture and kicked them out of the Bible. But they couldn't agree on Enoch, so they set him aside in the apocryphal books. And so there's some crazy stories in the apocryphal books. By the way, Steve Clark says, Scotty, still more update on my youngest sis and are supposedly having COVID. Yeah, let us know what's going on, Steve. And so if I'm missing some of your comments, folks, it's because I'm talking and staring into the camera. So I'm missing some important things maybe over there. Put it in all caps and I'll try to see it while I'm talking. So Enoch, it gets us down to, we're talking about Enoch may have been the architect for the Great Pyramid of Giza. It's very possible he was the architect of the Tower of Babel early in the biblical stories, which was a big ziggurat. And we started looking last week. We looked at all the measurements, the pyramid inches, the height and the width, and all of this of the Great Pyramid of Giza, which is attributed to Cheops or Khufu. And yet we think that maybe Enoch was the author of, the architect of this. Maybe not directly, but maybe indirectly by the things that he brought to the table. The mathematics he brought to the table, the engineering he brought to the table. We talked about how back in that time, that Egypt, Giza Plateau was the center of the world when you're talking about Pangaea, before all the continents divided. And they're talking about how the Great Flood divided the continents. The book of Job, which is considered to be the oldest chronological book in the existing canonized Old Testament, as being the oldest book in the Bible. Job talks about a scant reference in there, talking about something else, and says, and you know this thing back in the days when the earth moved, or the earth separated, or something like that. And there was some vague reference to it then. And so we were looking through all this stuff, Giza being at the center of the world, how the Great Pyramid's built on this huge sand silica quartz plateau, and directly below the Great Pyramid is a cavity called the Grotto. Now, I had a bunch of photos lined up to show you tonight, but I can't show them while I'm doing a live stream. I can if I use another program, so I started working in that program, trying to get that all lined up, and I couldn't get it all set up in time to do the stream through that tonight. We'll get it going. We'll make it happen. It's coming. So we asked the question, why was the center of the landmass so important to Enoch? The placement of the Great Pyramid. By placing the Great Pyramid in the center of the landmass, in combination with the sand, the limestone, the granite block, it converts sound vibrations into electromagnetism, creating a sound resonating device. What, the Great Pyramid, a sound resonating device? I heard it was a tomb. It's not a tomb. You know, the one thing that everybody agrees with about the Great Pyramid is nobody knew exactly why it was built, other than as a monument. That's the one thing they agree on. And remember, we were talking about earlier in this about the holy language, about frequency, about vibration. And then you start looking into all of this with the pyramid. So the Earth's crust under the continents is granite. Continents is granite. It's granite. And granite's a rock that's formed essentially of quartz, and limestone is a sedimentary rock composed largely of calcite that contains all these small cavities of quartz. I keep hitting my ring on my coffee cup. Sorry about that. And quartz has the capability, when it's subjected to mechanical pressure, to produce electrical voltage, called that piezoelectric effect, which when electricity is applied to quartz, it vibrates. And so we talked about vibration. Then we talked about the Hebrew letter that he chose to employ within the Great Pyramid was the Hebrew letter Ayin. And I've got a diagram showing you the Ayin and what it looks like. Now remember, keep in mind, and I'll show you this tomorrow night when I get some photos up. There'll be a pre-recorded show tomorrow night, just a few hours in advance. So don't worry about it. It's going to be all pertinent, new information. Go, oh, geez, they're not live? Well, yeah, I'm live, but just a few hours offset. Figure it, I'm live with about a 2 to 3 hour delay. So the Hebrew letter A, and we're looking at how these letters, this holy language, all meant something. The first letter in the Bible meant something. We explained that, how the first letter that Enoch used in the Great Pyramid was the Hebrew letter Ayin, and how the Ayin stood for the all-seeing eye, the Peh, the symbolically representing a mouth from the Tower of Babel. And the Hebrew letter Ayin symbolically represents the eye. And it literally means eye, the omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent God is watching over us. You can see it on your dollar bill. Flip over your dollar bill. That's where that came from. The pyramid may very well be the all-seeing eye, as noted as the Egyptian eye of Ra. And there's a smaller hidden clue that might hold the proof to this truth. In fact, the founding fathers of the United States were so deeply religious in a certain way that most of them were deists, meaning God basically, for all practical purposes, God created the universe like an alarm clock, wound it up and set it off on the shelf and went fishing. He's letting the universe run itself. But they were deeply religious men. And they were also, most of them, Freemasons. And by the way, after we finish this little section on Enoch and the Pyramid of Giza, we're going into Enoch and the Freemasons. I wish I had an echo right now, a reverberation. The Freemasons, Masons, Masons. We're going to go into that in another day here. That's going to be a really interesting topic to broach. But they charged their descendants, the founding fathers, with the secret of Egypt, that the symbol of the Egyptian Eye of Ra was placed within a pyramid quite deliberately on the reverse side of the $1 bill. And so how is the Hebrew letter Ayin found within the Great Pyramid? And this is where tomorrow I'm going to recap some of this because I want to show you some diagrams. But if you look at the Great Pyramid, okay, I'm going to describe it in words for you. And if you look at the screen, I can't share in the format I'm in, the program I'm in, I can't share this with you, the visual. But if you look at a diagram of the pyramid as if it's invisible, and you look at all the passageways, one that goes down to the Queen's chamber, one that goes up to the King's chamber. There's a side chamber that goes off. That is the Queen's chamber. Down below, you have the subterranean chamber. And it all comes from the entrance, which is over here. And what you've got basically is this. The interior shape, the chambers, the passageways, all form the likeness. And again, this is the kind of stuff where you go, really? I don't know about that. But it blows your mind at the same time. All those passageways, when you look at them, actually create a diagram of the Ain, which kind of looks like our letter Y in Hebrew. It looks like this. It comes down and down. Well, it's kind of like down, and it's got a Y, and it's got the little serifs on the top. Now, the interesting thing, you look at the diagram of, you got the two passageways in the pyramid and the things going up. You look at that from above, it forms an Ain, or an Ain. Why would it do that? Is it just coincidence, along with all these other things that are coincidence about the building, the numbers, the mathematics of the pyramid? It's also the positioning of the pyramid, the center of the earth. And while it's not exact, consider that the Ain is also derived from nature's law of unit growth. And we explained that the other day in its geometry, as well as the Great Pyramid's internal structure. It's comparable. And I can show you some of these in kind of a retrospect tomorrow. But so why would the Hebrew letter Ain tilt sideways inside the pyramid? Why would it be sideways? That's the big question. If he's building something that, or it's designed to reflect the letter Ain, why would it be sideways that we're looking at this? Logically, the letter Ain would be seen only from one point of view. If it were outside, looking down from the top, as well as from the bottom, looking up from the inside. And now the answer to this can be clearly seen. And I've got a diagram of this, which I'm going to have to walk you through. The Great Pyramid of Giza has 4 sides. If you were to look down from above and visibly see through all the limestone blocks, the position of the chambers, the passageways within the pyramid would form the Hebrew letter Ain. And there it is, in its Y shape from the top, looking down through. So, though there's few out there that would entertain the idea of why they built all of the shafts and tunnels and chambers in specific locations where you find them, there must have been a logical reason for the precise architecturally planned locations within the pyramid. Now, it's illogical to assume that they were built without a design. Oh, hey, these stones fit good here, eh? Let's put chambers here, eh? And passageways. Now, logic dictates that they must have been put in the locations for absolutely functional reasons. Now, Matt Finn says, I've always heard that, but not sure archaeologists have even acknowledged a chamber was there. And there is a chamber down below. There is a chamber, which is the Queen's chamber going up, and there's the King's chamber. I'm going to show you in diagrams tomorrow and some photographs of it. I went up, and I've mentioned this before, I went up into the King's chamber. Inside, it's in the heart of the pyramid. And this is if you're looking at the Ain, the Y shape, it's way up in here. And you go all the way up in there. And first you go through the entryway that's been blown out of the outside of the walls. And you get in, they tunneled into the main passageway. So it's kind of neat. You go in from the outside where they blew, Napoleon shot cannonballs at it, and workers chiseled out about 20 feet in. You come out of this really hard chiseled hallway that's irregularly shaped, and you enter out through the doorway that they blew into the wall and chiseled out of the wall, and poof, you're in this chamber, this hallway. If I remember, it goes around that way, and you see the chamber. There's a square and it's all stonework. It's flat and it's squared off. It's geometric, and there's about 4 foot tall an entryway, maybe slightly taller than that. And you look up that shaft, and you can see it goes all the way to the top. It's about the length of, I don't know, it's maybe 100 yards or something like that. But they've in modern times, they put a handrail on there, and they put wooden slats on the flat shaft. And so you got to bend over at about this height to get in there, and you walk up in that position all the way up to the top of that shaft, and you enter into what's called the Grand Gallery. And I'll show you some pictures of that. You're not supposed to bring cameras in there. Even though John was an archaeologist, he couldn't bring his camera in. We got into all kinds of cool places as him being an archaeologist. We still couldn't bring our cameras, but John brought his anyway in his pocket. And he said, "That's my phone. It's not my camera." So anyway, we got up out of the shaft into the Grand Gallery, and it opens up. It's about 60, 70 feet high. And it's the weird angles to the stonework, so you can almost lose your balance just looking up at it. But that opens up, and there's that Grand Gallery that goes up about another 200-300 feet and gets you to what would have been in its day. There was no stairway. There's a wall at the end and a doorway at the top. This little doorway sitting way up at the top. Now they built a metal staircase and brought it in there. And it goes up. You crawl up there or walk up there. You get to the top, and there's another about 4.5 foot tall opening, square opening. You bend down, you go through there for about 12 feet, and you enter into the King's chamber, which is about 20 feet tall. It's all pure granite all the way around here. There's an old sarcophagus in there that's broken, but nobody's body has ever been in it. So it's very cool. But he's gone off with the shafts and chamber talk. says Matt. Yes, I have. So here's the idea. Why did they build them the way they did was the whole point I was getting at. And by the way, Matt brings up they just recently found a large void using some new radar technology, LiDAR technology. And there are voids in there. King's Chamber at the west end of the shaft. Got it. Boom. It's in the heart of the pyramid. And so all of this, these shafts form this diagram. And though it's not entertained very much in academia or by scholars, why would they have built these chambers in specific shapes and directions that mimic, when you look down from the top, the letter Ain? That's a big question. The logic dictates they must have put the locations in there the way they did for functional reasons. And researchers to this day still cannot answer what the purpose of the Great Pyramid actually was. What was its function? We've got guy Stephen Meyer. He wrote a book about this, and he promotes this a lot, does a lot of interviews. He's a friend of mine on my Facebook. You can go look him up. He's written about how the pyramid was a great energy transmitter of sorts because it had water that would flow up to it, water that would flow around it, water down in the secret chamber down below, which you can access. It's not so secret anymore. And that the water, and that it was natural. It wasn't this oogie boogie alien stuff. This was designed to do this because water combined with it, and it all transmitted. It allowed, fertilized the area, grew crops. Whole generations were spent building these things. There were villages right there at the pyramid that built this stuff. So the researchers, they can't agree to the function, and there's a lot of theories. It wasn't a tomb, as some people thought. It wasn't a tomb to the pharaoh. Didn't turn them into gods in the afterworld, although there were rituals that they believe took place there. Read some of, why am I slipping on his name all of a sudden? For Pete's sake, you know who I'm talking about. Bald guy. He talks like this. He's from Egypt. Done a lot of stuff with Graham Hancock over the years. Robert Bauval. Read some of his work on the Great Pyramid. And so there's been many speculations, but there's no substantive evidence as to what it was ever used for. And so everything has become this kind of dead-end guesswork. And aside from this, it'd seem kind of logical that if a nation of people were to build an immense monument such as the Great Pyramid by numerous generations of their population with a lifetime of blood, sweat, heart, might, and soul into it, there had to be a reason, and a good reason. Or was it just the pharaoh said, I want a big triangle in the middle of the desert to commemorate me. Go, make it so, make it happen. So it shall be written, so it shall be done. So, but common sense tells us it would have to have been for survival reasons and the continued existence of a nation and its people. It was the existence of the nation. Survival. How did you survive? You had to have crops. You had to be able to feed your people and so on. Did you know, and this is some of the pictures I'm going to show you tomorrow, there are channels that run up to the pyramid from the Nile. When we were standing, John Ward and I, several years back now, we're standing on what would be I don't know what's the front or the back side. I called it the back side, facing the city of Cairo, where you see stretched out, you can see not even on the horizons, a mile in front of you, there is trees, it's all green, and it's all the buildings. And suddenly you see the city of Cairo way in the background. The west, as I mentioned, faces toward the desert, Sahara. The east faces toward Cairo. But behind there was the old temple, and there's temple ruins right at the base of the pyramid. I've got pictures of this. And those temple ruins, you can see in the sand going off down kind of at a slope toward the city of Cairo. You can see that there is a lane that goes all the way down. Well, that lane, you know what that lane is? It's not just a processional way. That is a channel that went to the river Nile to bring water up to the pyramid. And they say there was almost a moat around the pyramid. And you can see that channel if you're standing and looking at the Sphinx, standing in front of it. Over on this side of the Sphinx, this side is the roadway where you walk up alongside it and you come around. Over on this side, there's a channel. There's stonework, and that's that channel that goes up alongside the pyramid. So it's very interesting. Egypt is an empire that's had many different rulers gaining power by wars, and therefore renovated and refurbished to the newest ruler's desires, thus becoming very confusing to archaeologists who continue to discover new findings with differing chronological dates. There's like, did you know right now there are 4 chronological calendars to the king's list in Egypt? And they separate, this king ruled from here to here. Well, this chronologist puts him from here to here. This one doesn't even have him. This one shows him with a co-region. And there's 4 of those, and they zigzag kind of all over the timeline. Then there's some tap that came up with his own chronological of the Egyptian kings to fit his personal theories on the Exodus. That's out there, and most scholars will go, right? But so those exist. It should be known to this day, the Great Pyramid can't be dated accurately. When was it built? Kind of back in this time. But it can't be dated accurately. It can't be carbon dated because there's no organic material. It's dead. It's a non-living thing. However, it can be carbon dated by its mortar that doesn't contain organic elements such as bits of charcoal, reeds, wood, or that does fit those. And it's found between the mortar with anomalous different ranges ranging to as early as 10,500 BCE. That's 8,500 years ago. I'm sorry, that's 10,000 BC. That's I did that backwards. That's 12,000 years ago. You know what else dates back 12,000 years? Göbekli Tepe in northeastern Turkey. So it dates back as far back, some of these dating systems, to 10,500 BCE. It's been a kind of a mockery associating a temple or a pyramid with any specific pharaoh. This is because the later pharaohs often laid claim to the works by the earlier pharaohs who rebuilt or restored them, structures, and claimed them as their own. We talked about erasure. How you have erasure. A pharaoh would come along, be a temple that's 1,000 years old. And he'd go, scrape off the name and put my own in there. And they'd scrape off the hieroglyphics, the relief work, and they'd re-chisel in the new relief work. Now, what's very cool, even at my friend John and Maria's site of Gebel El, Speos of Horemheb. Speos is it's carved out of the rock. And there's all these hieroglyphs all over it. Well, you start taking, and Horemheb is the guy who followed King Tutankhamun to the throne. He was a general of King Tut's. And so he's got this Speos at Gebel El Silsila. But what's interesting is that they did some infrared photography on that. And I don't know if this is published or not. I think it is. But they found that there's more of Hatshepsut, a pharaoh who was related to this guy, Senenmut back here, from about 80 years earlier, who is all over the inside of in infrared. She was erased. And Horemheb took over the Speos, just like they did many other shrines and temples in Egypt. So that's what you've got with a lot of these kinds of things with pharaohs who rebuilt or reclaimed old structures. And further, 80 archaeologists weren't above faking a pharaoh's cartouche to make a structure fit their theories. Now, legend tells us that the Great Pyramid of Giza did not always look the way it does in the present day. The choppy limestone blocks that we see today were at one time covered with white marble-like polished limestone casing stones. And imagine the pyramid as you see it now. It's all rough and rubbly. You can climb it up it like stairs to the top. But they filled in all that stair work with, here's a simple way to put it. If you got a stair shape that's like that, you carve a stone that fits that, only it's smooth this way. Boom, it goes on the top. They had this smoothed out, highly polished limestone. So the pyramid looked almost white. Imagine that in the beating Sahara Desert sunlight. It was a gleaming, white, flat-faced shiny pyramid. And you can find a lot of, if you look at some pictures of the Great Pyramid of Cheops, you'll see as you go up, about 2/3 of the way up, you see some of that still up there. It's all fallen off, or people have taken it off over the centuries, but still way up near the top, you see some of the smooth stones up there. If you go down on the ground below, you'll see some of those that have fallen off over the centuries, those polished stones. And so Great Pyramid can't be dated, but we do see certain things about it. Legend tells us that it didn't always look the way it did, and that's not even legend anymore. Now that's more, I wouldn't call it legend. I would call it archaeology tells us that it was covered with these white marble-like polished limestone casing stones that beamed back at the sky like a reflective mirror. And we find evidence of these casing stones that were once the Great Pyramid to have been later removed after the 14th century earthquake, used to build the Cairo temples, reclaimed polished stone off of the pyramids. Why would they do that? But we're talking 14th century AD. You know, you're talking maybe 8,000 years, 9,000. And so allegedly on these casing stones were inexplicable marks. They were on the stones halfway up the side. And I'm looking at the clock. We're already over time, but that's okay. We're going live. So halfway up the side of the Great Pyramid, apart from just being alleged evidence of silt sediments containing seashells, fossils, all of this are still present at the base of the Great Pyramid. Not only are watermarks and sea fossils visible on the outside, but salt incrustations consistent with mineral salt from the sea were found within inside the Great Pyramid well. So strangely, the salt incrustations that lead from the chambers down to the subterranean chamber show the uniformity of fluid movement. And all these deposits are suggestive of a sea flooding, or even the notion that the Great Pyramid was used as a water pump. Many esoteric thinkers have been ridiculed by archaeologists for their opinions regarding the watermarks and the salt watermarks, but nobody has been able to adequately explain otherwise for these discrepancies. And they're all theories that lead to no resolute end. How could the Great Pyramid have salt water around it? What if, now, it is a known geological fact that sometime between 6,000 BCE and 8,000 BCE, we're talking 8 to 10,000 years ago, there was great deluge. There were a couple of them where the entire earth has earmarks of having been flooded. Now, what happens if the pyramid is, 12,000 years old today, and you had a flood 10,000 years ago? You had a flood 8,000 years ago. It's the same thing you find at Göbekli Tepe, which is 12,000 years old. You see, it was buried probably because of a coming flood. What if the Noah story, this is my own, I'm just speculating here, I'm blah, blah, blahing. What if Noah was part of the Göbekli Tepe thing? So there's that. That's for free because I got nothing to go along with that. So the watermarks, the seashells, the fossils, the salt incrustations, these are all significant because they might hold some clue as to the age of the Great Pyramid. And it's one of the many clues to a much older date in history, which leads me to link the watermarks, the seashells, the fossils, the salt incrustations to Noah's flood. It's interesting, isn't it? And who was Enoch? Remember, he was the was he the grandfather of Noah? Something like that. Enoch. And so you've got this great flood of Noah. It starts to tie in here. By the way, the works of John Anthony West, the late John Anthony West, did a lot of work on the water erosion of the Great Sphinx. And he said, there is no way that the Great Sphinx is as young as we think it is. It's much older. And it's been flooded. So with all this in mind, it's my opinion and estimate that the Great Period existed before the dynastic period, before the time of the pharaohs. and the great flood of Noah's time. If the pyramid existed before the great deluge, which we know happened, it's just we say that the story of Noah and other flood tales are all ways to explain why, in a religious way or a spiritual way, why these things happened. But it happened. And if the pyramid existed before the flood, then there existed a pre-deluge people from a great civilization, which included Enoch. If you look at the book of Enoch, it talks about how the 200 prefects from heaven, the watchers, we've heard them called, the Bene Ha-Elohim, those who were of the Elohim, which is current day Mount Hermon, which in the north. There's great ski resorts up there now. In the book of Enoch, it mentions that this is where the watchers came down and decided to intermingle with human women and have children with them and to teach them all these different things about agriculture, language, writing. This all fits into the time of Enoch. Thank you, Melissa T. Happy New Year. Blessings. Divinely so. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. And so I want to look at some of your comments. I'm going to go backwards a little bit, starting with what's here. Says, yeah, thank you, Melissa. Everybody's saying. Awesome. Joe Sapien says, perhaps the very ancient Egyptians that built the whole complex were in a lush land. They were. Now, we know all about Nile inundation. Every year there was the inundation. There were festivals in ancient Egypt that were built around the inundation of the Nile, which doesn't happen the same way anymore since they dammed up the Great Aswan Dam, which created this huge, enormous Lake Nasser down near Abu Simbel, the big pyramid, the monument's got the big 4 big statues. You've seen them of Ramesses sitting. And I went there with my daughters and with John Warden, with a bunch of people that we brought to take on a trip a few years ago. And they moved that all up the hill so it wouldn't get flooded out by Lake Nasser when they built the dam. So yeah, Egypt was a flooded plain during Nile inundation. And so, however, it was not a flooded plain that buried the pyramids. It didn't flood that deep. You had the monument, you've seen the Colossi of Memnon, the 2 big statues of, I think it's Ramses IV, who's sitting there. And the 2 big statues, and it's kind of worn away. There's a great picture of John Ward and I standing like this in between, and you see the 2 big colossi between us. We called that picture the 4 colossi. I'll show you that picture tomorrow. But yeah, there was flooding, and there's paintings from a century ago that show Nile waters coming up, 3-4 feet over the base of these statues, down on the ground, 3-4 feet depth. Guys in a boat. They were moving around, a beautiful picture. But you didn't see anything that would, or say, the tops of the Theban Mountains a mile away. You didn't see that. That's the height of the pyramids. And the water just did not extend that high in the Nile Valley. So, Joe, by lush land, I mean that the Sahara Desert was smaller of a size. Yeah, probably. I think, didn't they say that the Sahara Desert has remnants of ocean, saltwater ocean, seabed all over the Sahara Desert, which is very interesting. And like I showed you the other day, here I've got this still sitting out, this little artifact. I picked this up on a mountaintop, not a big mountain, hilltops in the dunes over the wadis in southern Luxor, south of the Theban Mountains. I picked this little guy up. You know what this is? It's pink. It's very pink in real light, in real life. But this little guy, that's a petrified clamshell. Now, and these were scattered like this. They look like this all over the mountaintops in there as we were hiking along. How's a petrified seashells all over the tops of the mountains. All kinds of petrified things that are connected to sea life. So I picked this up and I brought it home. So it's a seashell, a clamshell. Maybe it's oyster shell. I don't know which. You can tell by the shape. You can see it. But this is an artifact from the top of a mountain in Luxor. These low mountains and the sand deserts and in the dunes. I can show you a picture where I picked that up yesterday too, or tomorrow. I'll show you that. So, and yeah, Doug, I want to learn how we go back to that time. I believe that time is happening right now, somewhere in this galaxy or somewhere in space. You might be right, Doug. We have very little way to prove something like that, but I get where you're going with that. I want to go and spend a day. Off the topic now. We're going to wrap up the topic for tonight, and we are way over time. My time, so we've gone 21 minutes over. So forgive me for running so late. And tomorrow we're going to get into this more, and we're going to show some pictures tomorrow. But and we may rabbit trail totally off into pictures tomorrow, just trying to back up some of this stuff I was talking about and just look at the area. But wouldn't you, if you could, would you time travel? And I think it would be fascinating. Could you imagine going back in time to when they're building the Sphinx or building the pyramid? And there you are going, or you got your phone. You're just going, click, click. However you want to do it. I've fantasized about this long enough that I was using my old big Canon with the big lens. And I think it'd be fantastic. Wouldn't it be cool to go back in time and see things and be able to come back? Of course, I've got pictures. Only problem is if you go back with a cell phone or a camera, you got nowhere to plug it in. So you're going to have to go back for a few hours each time and take some pictures and come back. Wouldn't it be neat to go back and see what did these things really look like? What did Pharaoh's court look like? I posted a picture that was a repeat from the past on my Facebook the other day, showing the palace of Amenhotep III. I'm sorry, not Amenhotep. It was Tutmosis III, I think. Or was it Amenhotep? Don't remember which. But you look at his palace, and it's a reconstruction digitally. It shows like what looked like pencil lines to full colored out 3D graphic. And it's very short, but you can go see it on my Facebook. Just scroll back a few days, and you'll find it in there. Fascinating. Could you imagine going back there? Could you imagine Matt Finn said Rome would be amazing? And man, imagine being able to go back to Rome and look at things. You'd have to go back in costume. But if you went back and the things that we think we know look different, more different than they actually are. You look back at Renaissance paintings of ancient Rome, the time of Christ, the Bible, they had them all in Renaissance clothes because they had no idea what the clothing really looked like. Well, by archaeology and so on, we found out. But what if you go back and you could see those things? Choose a period in history. I've always said that if I could travel in time, I would love to go back. And it is said of Thomas Jefferson, 16th president, not 16th. The third president? I was thinking, mixing him with Abraham Lincoln in the back of my head. Thomas Jefferson, writer of the Constitution, one of our founding fathers. Imagine, they said of him in history that his home at Monticello, which is about an hour and a half. I lived in Lynchburg by car. It was an hour and a half to get up to Monticello, which is in Charlottesville, Virginia. And it's about, by car, Charlottesville is about another hour and a half to Washington. So you can imagine about a day's trip by horse or carriage to get to, probably more than that. Probably 2 days to get to Charlottesville from Washington, D.C. But Jefferson's home, gorgeous, gorgeous home. Go look Monticello, Monticello. Leslie lives in Monticello, Minnesota. Yeah, there you go. She just said that. She lives in Monticello, Minnesota. Same spelling. Go look up Jefferson's Monticello and take a look at the glorious house he lived in on a mountaintop. Now, if I could go back in time, it was said in history that people would just ride up in a carriage or a horse, unannounced, go knock on the door. Is the former president home? I'd love to meet Mr. Jefferson. And he would sometimes give audience and see them, and sometimes he wouldn't. But it was pretty much, sometimes he had to get away from Monticello because too many people came to visit him. And he had a home that was almost identical to Monticello, except a much smaller version, down in where I lived, in Lynchburg, Virginia. And Rainey and I went there back in 2007. We went to, it's called Poplar Forest. It's right off, it's like you're going down a residential street in Lynchburg, Virginia. And off to the side here, there's a brick house. Oh, wait a minute. That's Poplar Forest and acreage with it. It's a big historic site now that they've totally redone in the last 15 years. And so, yeah, Marie Keithley says, I want to be an unseen observer. Yeah, that would be nice. If we can fantasize about traveling back in time, we can fantasize about being invisible when we get there. An unseen observer. That'd be nice. I wouldn't mind interacting with people too, though. I think that would be interesting. Although language could be a tough one. I've heard even archaic English. You go back 1,000 years, you probably couldn't understand the English being used in England. So, but what a neat thing. Where would you go? What would you do? Who would you want to visit? Thomas Jefferson, I would go back in time. I'd ride up on a horse and go knock on the door. I have a little, and I'd show him, maybe this is the big cardinal rule. Oh, you can't tell, when you travel back in time, you can't tell them about the future. Well, that's a fake law. That doesn't exist. You know why? Because nobody's time traveled yet that we know of. There's no law regarding that, unless it's a universal law that, hey, if you can travel back in time, don't tell them about the future. You'll change the future. But what if you could sit down with somebody like Jefferson and go, here's what's going on in the country now in 2020. What if you could go back and say, the Northwest you had Lewis and Clark looking for, and they found the passage to the sea. Here's what's there now. It's all built up. You could fly from Washington, D.C. to the Pacific coast in Washington State in 3.5 hours. These guys were gone for a year and a half. Almost 2 years, wasn't it? Looking for that passage. So, Back to the Future plot. There it is, Michelle. Might have to write a book about that when I finish the 3 on my table right now. So I'm going to wrap up the show with that. What if you could go back and see these things? Wouldn't it be nice to have the definitive answers? What if you could go back to the pyramids in their original state when we just finished building these after 2 generations last month? They're there. Boom. It's like the Geico ad with the 2 Egyptians, ancient Egyptians, looking at the big scroll and rolling it out. And you see 3 big squares. And he looks up over the scroll and he goes, uh-oh. And then it shows a scene of the pyramids. They're not pyramids. They're big, or they're pyramids, not big squares. The squares were on the plan. So it'd be interesting to find this stuff out. Well, anyway, you know what we're going to do tomorrow? Tomorrow we're going to come back to this topic. We're going to wrap up Enoch and the Great Pyramid. We're going to talk about what caused the AN vibration, the landmass of Earth. We're going to look at some diagrams that we haven't seen. And I'm going to show you some pictures. We're going to talk about the Pharaoh's clasped cylinder in the hands, some of them broken off in the temples. We're going to talk about, really the function of the Great Pyramid. And if we have time tomorrow, we're going to get into Enoch and the Freemasons. But that might be Friday's show, New Year's Day show. And now we're still going to do a show on Thursday, tomorrow, New Year's Eve. You may or may not be here, but I'll have a show. And you can watch it anytime. If you join us live tomorrow, you'll be able to enjoy the show live. But tomorrow we'll look at this whole water pump thing and some of the diagrams and some pictures. Maybe we'll just, you know what? We could move it all out. If there's not going to be a lot of people here because of the holiday, maybe we'll just kind of lightly touch on stuff and we'll do a nice slideshow tomorrow for fun. Excuse me. And so that's all I got for tonight, folks. Thank you for being here. Melissa, again, thank you for that donation. And I appreciate that. That means a hell of a lot to me. Melissa T. And folks, thank you all for being here. Perhaps you're born back into a previous time than the last life. Previous, I think you meant. And perhaps, Matt. So it's 11:30. So you are in my favor, so to speak, time zone wise. So thanks for being here, guys. There's more to come of this. We did get to spend really pretty much the better part of an hour on the topic tonight because we ran over. And sorry, my apologies to Jimmy Johnson over on Beyond Reality Radio. Totally different network, so it doesn't matter in that greater sense of things. But I don't like to step on my friend's time. I apologize, Jimmy. So everybody have a good night. Matt says you had some electric energy tonight. Speaking for all of us, and we love and appreciate you, brother. Thank you, brother. And all of you, have a good night. If you're not a member, join. Hit the join button. Spread the word that this show exists out there, and let's see if we can build things up. Appreciate your being here. I appreciate every last one of you, and that you're here. So you all have a good night. I'm going to see you tomorrow, and I'll be here in the chat room while we've got a pre-recorded show going on. But like I said, the pre-records, only a couple hours off. Pre-record them so I can do other things I can't do live. So we'll see you here in the chat room tomorrow night. If you're around, if you're not out celebrating. And you have a good night now. And I'll see you later.